Thank you. I totally just slipped my mind.
No worries.
Nice to meet you. Can I have your
Okay, so for everybody that is joining online, you should be able to see my screen. And we are here live in Plano, Texas at Toulouse. And so we've got a couple of people here. I've got my background screen up so you can't see everybody at the table. But I'm going to go ahead and record this. So what we're doing, like we always do, is a quarterly investor meeting. And so this is a chance for investors in person to get together and meet each other, swap stories if they'd like. And then, for example, I'm going to be putting together a very, not even a formal presentation, but just kind of an update of the whole portfolio currently, and be able to kind of do some Q&A at the end. There are a few deals that I'm going to go over that are not under my direct control as far as being the lead syndicator on these deals. And so some of the details that, I might put together would be a little bit different. So I'll kind of go over those things. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, I'm going to announce real quick, let everybody know. Hey, y'all, I'm going to present. You don't have to be silent or anything, but I'll start if you want to look. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen right now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the deals that I'm obviously the most intimately related with, which would be Luda May apartments. And so the biggest impact you're going to see here is some images that I'll share, how we started, where we're at now. And I have never pulled this up before on the screen, so bear with me. Is there any way to turn down the music? So if you can see my screen, I'm going to try to go back to the beginning of purchasing the property. So, for example, this is the offering memorandum when we started with Luda May, and it's in Fort Worth. It's in a cute A-class area, and so this was, like I said, the offering memorandum. So pardon me for not knowing how to use this software. Okay. So then there's a couple of comps here, and basically here's again from the offer memorandum, just a kind of overall view of what the property looked like. It was kind of green and it had these Christmas red doors. Yeah, it was cute, but we had some work to do, I suppose. And so fast forward kind of through idea phase and into kind of where we're at now. See if I can get a good shot. So this is one of the buildings now. So we changed the color scheme, put in some cedar, which I think cleaned it up a little bit compared to where it was before. Then we also have done the same thing on the interior units. This one piece of the property here will be split hopefully in the next 2 months or so into 2 units. Right now that's one large 3-bedroom, 2-bath at the top there. And this was actually prior to us putting in the, I don't have a new image because we just did a barbecue. So when we finish up all the CapEx, we try to have a, hey, come use your stuff, welcome to the community kind of thing. So yeah, we did, I think, a pretty good job. Right now we're in the process of doing our last piece of the CapEx projects, which, so you can see we put in a grill. And we also do paid parking. So we had to redo the parking spaces, and now these are paid spaces, adding to the income. This is the grill when it was finished. Let's see if I have a picture of the pergola. I don't know if I have downloaded one of the laundry room yet. This was in progress. This was like next phase. It's done now. I don't think I dropped another image in here, but so there's some updating I got to do. But we put in a pergola. Now that gate over there now has ivy down that, and we're putting in, as of this week, we're putting in some Edison looking bulbs to put under that so that the residents can enjoy. I'm not sure if I've got pictures of the units before. Should. There's a lot of idea phase stuff. I don't think I did, but okay, kind of like this. You can kind of see here. So this is a bad example, but basically this was one where we blew out a wall and then reutilized this space of this unit. But basically you can't tell from here, but the cabinets are just painted over, so they all stick and you can't shut the drawers and whatnot. So kind of original cabinets pretty much. Some units had some granite, some units did not. Most did not. And so I guess I guess this is that unit. So after we open this up a little bit, and now there's appliances in there. but we basically put in LED light bulbs to save energy because this is a building where this particular unit is on the L part of the building where it's a RUBS system, so ratio utility bill back. So we put in a certain GPM or gallons per minute aerator that's on the shower head in there, and then same thing with the tub and then the sink, and then same thing in the kitchen, the sink. So that really greatly reduces the usage of water. So there's a certain, usually about 20%, I think at this point, that we still are responsible for. We build back 80%. And to reduce our cost even further, these little fixes that maybe for per apartment, it's like $20 for all of it. So that makes a big difference. Little value add things like that are kind of what we try to focus on. Let's see if I have any other updates. Not really. But if you guys want to go drive by and go check it out, it's 301 Luda Street West, or West Luda Street. Yeah, in Fort Worth. I'm gonna check it out. So it's a cute little property that we redid. So this was kind of my way of keeping track of the photos. So I'll exit out of there. And so the executive summary on this property is a little bit different because the way that we have it is that we get it on a URL. The investors get it in our portfolio management system. I guess it's a portal for investors. So in that portal, they get a monthly email, and then there's a link that goes to the summary. So this is just one example of the properties, Luda. So we're going through what our revenue is. You can see how it's been tracking. This was when we had another property management company that wasn't reporting things correctly, and we can't really go back and fix what it was. But anyway, so we had to go, okay, well, here's where we're really at. And then doing construction, you have a point in time where, of course, residents leave, income goes down, and then you do all the construction, and then you have the opposite effect happen where you've got more residents, more income. So we're at this phase in time, and this is September. Obviously, we're really in November. So I'm going to show you all this report and then show you where we're actually at. So you can see the net operating income now has been positive. Again, this was reported incorrectly, but this was CapEx that was supposed to be below the line and was above the line because we do a lot of heavy renovation at the beginning. So for example, here, occupancy, it says 68%. Right now we're over 80%, and then have a couple pre-leases to get over 90. It's a small property, so each lease makes a big difference. And then in these reports, they go through the revenue, net operating income per month, and then the total net income, how many maintenance requests we get, what they were from, who they came from, how many times. And then sometimes the residents will rate us. We ask them to do that. So we can see if we can improve our service. Our goal on this property is to get our aging for maintenance under 4 days. So any emergencies, 1 day, 24 hours turnaround, then under 4 days for anything else. And then as an attachment to this report, there's the rent roll aging summary, unit cost ledger, which I like because then you can see, okay, what are we spending in the last month on each doorknob and each door, you know what I'm saying, like each piece of what we're purchasing. So, and then there's a monthly summary, which is a export of this into a document, and then the entire reporting package, which sometimes is about 150 pages because it's got the rent roll, profit and loss statement, balance sheet, GL or general ledger. I'm trying to remember all the reports I asked for on there. So by week, checks in and out. Anyway, so there's about 6 different tabs that are on this one to review when you get your monthly report. So that's where we were in September. And then if I go here to, so every Monday when I'm not happy with how things are going, we have a MMR, or Monday morning report that gets sent out. And then we have a weekly call until whatever challenge is fixed. So this was just a screenshot of this last week's. And so we're at an 81.8% occupancy right now, 90.9 in the next 30 days. So that's one more lease. We have only 1 unit that is vacant, that is ready to go. Or actually, yeah, it's ready. So and then the other 2 units are pre-leased. So once these leases are approved and the move-ins actually happen, then we'll pretty much be 100% occupied. So minus one unit. So that's where we're at now. And then this also reports what our traffic looks like, because every week we try to track where the leads are coming from, how much we're spending on each lead from the leads, what then goes down to actual foot traffic, and then from the foot traffic sources, where do we need to concentrate spending our budget dollars for marketing. So on this particular property, it varies in every market. It's been very effective to do Facebook ads. And then the second best has been actually bootleg signs. So just sticking signs out on the corner, having residents drive by and go, oh, this is, and once the outside of a property changes, people really notice that there's a change. That's when you really start getting a lot of attention when the curb appeal changes. So this project, or this set of projects, took about 9 months to complete, but I've been holding off on the last project because the windows ended up being more than I expected. And so we're working with the city of Fort Worth right now for their WAP program, which is weather, lead paint, some other things. Basically what they do is they'll sometimes, depending on the income of the property, they'll give us up to $6,500 per unit to put into windows, doors, anything that makes it soundproof, weatherproof, and helps the property, or sorry, helps the residents to retain their soundproof, their privacy, and helps them to also, in an older property like this, to be able to have heat stay in and cold stay out, and vice versa in the summertime. So we're working on that right now, because if that's the case, then that will greatly reduce or eliminate that part of our budget, and then we can flip that into more storage lockers or some other ideas that are going to produce income. So that's where Ludamea is right now.
Is that program throughout Fort Worth, or is it like, is it different? Is the amount different per apartment?
Probably. I think it is like, that is the max amount you can get. And again, I think it's income based. So, okay, and compared also to the surrounding properties, just like when you do a Fannie Mae Freddie Mac loan, they'll give you a certain type of loan, which has better rates, longer terms, et cetera, for your property being one that's lower end than all the others in that community. And then you're bringing it up to get to a higher standard. So yeah, that's, it's probably on a, sliding scale, but I mean, I can put you in touch with my maintenance guy that's kind of heading that up.
Is it just in Fort Worth?
Well, that one is, yep. So as far as
that program, it's just in Fort Worth?
yeah,
Okay.
that the WAP particularly is there. Yeah.
How many years this some time ago?
23. See ya.
You acquired this like some time ago?
December.
Oh, that's,
Hmm?
oh, okay.
So we're almost done with repositioning. What I like to do is get that done within a year. So the only thing that's not done is the windows, but it's done. And once we have those 2 leases moved in, then we're stabilized, and then we just sit on the cash flow and start distributing to the investors quarterly. So that we're about to start doing that on that property. It looks like I flipped to another profile, and we are out of my Dropbox. So give me a second there. So I can show you this while we're waiting. So last week we closed on this property. This is Park Royal Apartments, 1940s historic property. It actually used to be a hospital in Amarillo, Texas. It's 111 units. It's actually 113. 2 are offline right now. So I'll be out there on Tuesday doing our official takeover meeting with our construction, property manager, because we've had to hire a new front desk, regional, et cetera. So then we'll kind of talk about our pro forma plan and what we're going to do every month, who's in charge. I enjoy project managing, so this is a really heavy lift, like a really heavy lift. So we're also working on trying to find somebody that enjoys QC or quality control, because my plan was really to move into one of the units 2 days every other week, pretty much for 6 months until this is done. Because this is, we finance this with a debt fund under a bridge loan, and so I'd like to get out of that bridge loan as fast as possible and get into long-term debt. Especially being in Amarillo. So yeah, this is going to be, so see how $30K per unit, I got it for $20K per unit.
Nice. Wow.
I'll just pat myself on the back. I just waited and waited and kept making an offer and kept making an offer, and oh my Lord, this seller, I'm going to get into it.
Oh,
but
that's what he was asking for. It's 30.
he wanted 3.3 and we paid 2.25.
Nice.
Yeah. But anyway, it was, yeah,
It's vacant, all vacant.
no, it's 30% vacant.
30% vacant.
Like 20 a year.
It's got bed bugs. There's all kinds of stuff wrong with it. Mechanicals are good, right? So that's what matters, I think.
That's how many units?
That was 111 that are online, and then there's 2 that are offline. So what that means is this is actually a 55 plus independent living facility. It's advertised that way. We are changing that to market renters. And so when we're in the process of taking down all the branding and all of that, these 2 units are on a stairwell. And so they're just not accessible by the main elevator. So when you have people that are of a certain age, they need the elevator. So those were just not advertised, but they're on the HVAC system. They have sprinklers in them. I mean, we can rent them. So that will be immediate. There's a ton of wasted space in this property. Like there's an old hair salon that doesn't do anything. So that's going to go and then turn into either storage lockers or rentable office space. We have an office downstairs in that building for Otis Elevators. So they rent from us every month and give us income. We'd like to do more of that. So stuff that doesn't really cost us any money. You know, they can add their fixtures that they'd like in the office space, but we don't have to make it like a WeWorks or anything like that, providing coffee or whatnot. So let me go back into these projects. So that's one that I am, intimately involved with. Obviously, same thing with Park Royal. We have now rebranded it. It's going to be called the Larson Historic Apartments. So we're just in the process of doing all the things. Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know if you'd agree with. I don't know if you would say that again if you had to deal with what we had to do to get it, and then what we had to deal with the seller. Oh my lord! I've never retraded before, but on this one I definitely did. And then we had a fire, and he lied about it for 3 weeks, and I mean just on and on and on and on stuff. So here. So that's Luda May, and we haven't yet put obviously reporting together. It usually takes, like when we close on a property, it'll take about 1 month to get enough financial information from the property manager to go, okay, now we can report to investors. So it takes 2 months to start reporting. And so when we close, we send out an email to all the investors letting them know this is kind of what you can expect. And then especially in a process of COVID or heavy construction or something's kind of wonky, we do monthly reporting. But then when it's stabilized, it turns into quarterly because there's not too much left to do. So let's go to, I don't know which one, Los Patos. So the most recent one I have is for September. So this is how this reporting looks for this project, and this is where I'm not the lead on this one. This one's Houston, Texas. So Juan Vargas is actually the lead on this one. We closed on this one a couple of years ago, and this has been a really interesting project. So I'll just kind of go through the numbers. You can see that when we started, we were about 92% occupied, and now we're just about the same. Because we had to go through a process of getting out all the residents that couldn't afford it or were not paying or whatnot. This was actually a value play property. So normally we do a heavy value add or a value add, and this one was not like that. This one was one where we went in there and actually throughout the lockdown, et cetera, it performed consistently. So that was nice. Whereas we had some other properties that were not so consistent. So it was a small change. Just the tenant profile is really all we changed. We've had 16 new applications, and that accounts for 11 signed leases and 8 new renewals. And we had 11 move-ins and 9 move-outs. This was September, like I mentioned. So overall for September, we've had 41 showings. 27 came from drive-by traffic. So as we said, with the bootleg signs and whatnot tend to do well. 10 from resident referrals and 4 from online searches. So you want to know where your traffic's coming from. To pick the one what I do is I pick the one that's working best and just dump a bunch of money into it because there's no reason to try to spread yourself everywhere. Whatever's working, that's a tech thing, but whatever's working, pay attention to it. So financials, total income. So this is good news. We started at $202,000 basically for the income, and then right now we're at $227,083. So what you want to see over time as we make the resident changes is that we're able to increase the rent and have people be able to afford it. So we're at that point now where people can afford the rent. And if you're ever in Houston and you want to stop by the Greens Point area, this is Los Prados. I've been there several times. I've actually filmed a bunch of videos out there. And it's an up and coming area for sure, but the type of property, it's very nice. So there's a ton of families in there. Financials, so for expenses, you can see that we have expenses that started off at about $120,000. And over time, depending on what we're doing on the property, those go up and down. And as of now, in September, our expenses were higher than they had been pretty much in previous months. So operating expenses in September were $162,000 pretty much. We were short on maintenance staff and had to hire out external assistants for maintenance to catch up on existing work orders. So basically backlogged, and then we're paying people that kind of our, like, work has been scarce. So it's been kind of nuts as far as even on that small property, Luda May, we needed to clean up. We needed, several thousands of dollars. And normally I could get someone to do something for like $50, like mow a lawn or whatever. No way. Because those people are sitting at home with their paycheck protection, or not paycheck protection, but their stimulus. Right. So this has been reflected everywhere for everybody where it went up. And this is a large property. It's 262 units, I believe. And so there's a lot of R&M, make ready costs. There's a lot of lawn care. There's a lot of like backlog maintenance. So that explains why the property was why we were spending more in September on the expenses, operating expenses. Contract services, and then also contract services were not paid for in August for some reason. So instead we were paying them in September. So there's also, you can see in August it's low, September it's high, whereas in reality it should be kind of equal in the middle there. So net operating income, this is where the value of the property derives from as far as what is our sale value, when would it make sense to sell. So when we started with the property, we were a little bit below 80,000, about 75 for our NOI, and now we're at 64 for our NOI. As mentioned above, we had several invoices from August that were paid in September, so that's why. So this should actually be, August and September should be somewhere in the middle, which would be right about a little higher than when we started. But that's what happens when you have a large tax bill, large insurance bill. When you don't do payment plans and put things out over several months, then the financials look funny. But really, we're obviously monitoring our average NOI over time, because that's what a buyer would look at. They'd be looking at 12 months. What's our performance been? So CapEx, so you can see in the beginning, typically we always have a heavy CapEx. This was not our fire property. So in September, the CapEx costs were mostly flooring and paint for unit turns, as well as $15K for appliances. You can see we're doing black appliances. If this is getting boring, I can kind of like speed through it a little bit. So refrigerators were a Mana brand, and our maintenance staff tried several repairs, but they kept failing. So the control modules fail, and the cost to replace them is close to replacing with an entire new refrigerator. So basically, we've been replacing the refrigerators instead of their control module. So $15K in appliances include 18 new GE refrigerators and 2 stoves. And so other news, we initiated distributions earlier in the week. Reach out if you don't receive them. And then here's how to contact us, and here's our Facebook page, etc. So that is the most recent update for Los Prados. For Los Prados, as mentioned, I think it just exited again. Seriously. For Los Prados, the most recent, so year-to-date distributions 2020 for 2021, it was 5.12%. So during COVID, we wanted to make sure that we had enough operating reserves for people leaving in droves or not paying their rent, etc. So we held back our cash-on-cash payments to investors, which should have been about, if I remember correctly, 9.42%. So they're just about half, a little more than half. And so right now what we're working on is doing a catch-up distribution for that. So we initialized another 2.03% annualized distribution for Q3. So that's obviously not the entire year's payout. So at the end of, and this was my presentation that I did in September, at the end of the actual calendar year, I'll be able to update everybody on that project with where we're at annualized for 2021. Let's see. I need a new computer. Anyone want to buy me one? So that was Los Prados in Houston. I'm going to try to get to
You use the same software for properties?
No. So with the, that's a good segue. Thank you. With the property management companies, they not all use different software, but some use different software, and that comes along with reporting too. So Citygate uses Resman, so does Class A management. One uses Yardi. Simplify uses their own software that they created because they're actually a tech company that does property management. So it's a little bit different for all of them. But as far as like what reports are attached, each different lead operator decides what they want to disclose to investors. Like I mentioned, balance sheet, P&L, weekly check register, et cetera. We get to choose what reports you get. So that's also a little different too. So unfortunately, this keeps exiting off my Dropbox. So try to go back there real quick. I guess it's time to buy another computer for Christmas. Okay, hopefully this doesn't exit off. Okay, so we did Ludame, Los Prados. I'm gonna just open this in the flats. So the flats, this is our Phoenix deal. So I'm kind of going in chronological order, but kind of not. Ludame it skipped. So Phoenix, this is the monthly report for September. So you can see our occupancy. We've had a drop in occupancy. We ended September with an 83% occupancy, and it's due to roof water damage. And then also we had a fire on this property, and so the renovation process has been interesting. So there's been a time where we had 88, 90% occupancy, but that was based on the online unit percentage. And so now that we've done the renovations to most of, and you'll see it in a minute, most of the fire units, now there's more units. So they're vacant units. So the occupancy then, goes down. I believe that's why, we have pre-leased. So there's no one in them. So they're not occupied, but we pre-leased 2 fire building units. We have a target move-in date early November. We have several applications for more fire units. And we're pre-leased at 92 points. So that sounds about right, 92.92%. And then I don't know if you want me to go through all the move-outs, move-ins, leases, et cetera, but they're happening. So total income, you can see that even though we're that vacant, our income is better now than it was when we bought it. So that's also great. Other income, I think, is a big part of that. It's $50,000 basically because we had utility recapture at $22,000, which is when you bill back those utility bills. That's when you get extra income, so that's also helping. That was not being done when we purchased the property. The total revenue for September was $191,700. Financials, so you can see our expenses are lower than they were when we took on the property. That's kind of what I look at, like when we started and to where we are now. How are we rating? So the expenses are down overall for total operating expenses. Net operating income, you can see where we started and where it is now. So we started at $38,000 and now we're at $85,000. So this has definitely been a very challenging property, but that's okay sometimes, as far as what ends up happening. So CapEx, again, as you can see in the beginning, that typically we get in there and we do a lot of renovations. This one, we had a fire like right in here. So it was like December, January. Negotiations with the public adjuster went on for quite a while before we were able to actually start renovating the units. Fire building update. So now the drywall, windows, bathtubs, new plumbing has been completed for all units. Doors have been installed. So we actually had fires on 2 properties during this year. So this was 2019 that it hit this one, or no, it wasn't. So I'm wrong. So it was actually before this. So this is capturing actually CapEx going into the units. But anyway, so Los Prados, Flats at 2030 had a fire, and then it's Village on University is the name now. So they both did. And so this one was way, way, way more rough than the other one in Denton. So Village on University was just 8 units, 1 building. This was like a third of the complex. So it's been quite a bit to rebuild. And here's a conversation that we had about selling the property. So we have a prepayment penalty is what you'd know it as, but it's a defeasance that actually doesn't lapse until February of 2022. And so that's when we were planning on selling, when we don't have to pay that large penalty. And so then actually we've talked as a team and we decided that we are going to go to market mid to late December while we bring the remaining units back online. More details to follow. It's still too early to determine an investor return amount upon sale, but we are targeting at least 120% return net of all fees. So we purchased the property, and I can say this because y'all are here, and it's a private video, but when we purchased the property, it was about $71,000 all in per door, and then all of the other properties that had were post renovated at the same time that basically we had comparable rents. Those were selling for $120,000 a door, and so that was 2 years ago. So we're actually also having a discussion that's not on here about refinancing. So if we can refinance as much as we think we can out per door, then we'll be able to make investors whole, give them their money, and then continue to keep the property. So that may be a possibility as well, and it's, you know, that's built into our PPM. It has to be, otherwise we can't do that. Again, how to contact us, and then here's some of the fire damaged units where we're at right now. Ordering bulk supplies in, and so basically there was a period of time where we renovated a floor and then tested them to see like who would rent them, for what amount would they rent them for. Are we going to do, we did a few with like a quartz countertop because that's what we actually negotiated in our insurance claim money that we received. So we've been able to rent out units. So stainless is not something we were doing. It was white appliances actually. And then I believe, I can't see it here, but I think this is the quartz countertop on these. So we've really done a job to really try to improve the property. And then I don't know if the common areas are not on here, but we put in Amazon lockers. We put in, or it might be Luxor, but we put in those lockers in a breezeway. We put in new pool furniture that we weren't planning on. We put in, what is it called? Cabanas, where you have those cool little drapes on it and stuff. You know, that was not part of the original plan, but with the insurance claim. What?
Charge for those?
Not on this property. No, this is a C-class property. So I'm sure, actually we don't even have a CAM fee, but Phoenix, Arizona. This is in, like, do you know where Glendale is? Mm-hmm. It's kind of in that area. So, so that's basically the flats at 2030.
So if you sell this, how much would this be?
I don't know. We were looking at getting 120% minimum on investors' money is what the target was to be able to sell. And so if we're reaching that target as well with, and I think we projected, again, I don't have the original offering in front of me, but it was around 100%. I think was our original projection. So we're trying to, you know, overperform. So that is the flats. And then we held back a distribution. We got that in email last week. So we did a few last year, but they were kind of similar to Los Prados, where they were lower than expected, but our documents call for catch-up distribution. So if we go through a time period where there's distress like this, then we'll distribute some money, but hold back a certain amount so we make sure that we're liquid just in case we don't have enough reserves or whatever, you know. Because there's lender required reserves, then you can do your own, you know, COVID reserves, but then that sometimes still isn't enough for, you know, a big fire, whoopsie, whatever. On this one, we had coverage of lost rents, which is great, but not always. And then it's not immediate either, you know, because you have to do the negotiations with the public adjuster. So that's Luda May, Los Prados, the Flats, the Meadows. So pretty much, let's see, I have been pulling reports on this one.
So what do you have now that like a new property that you're pitching for investors? Do you have anything now that nothing?
No, we just closed on Park Royal last week. We're closing on another 111 units in Corpus. Probably next week. The appraisal should be good to go on the 4th. So what, tomorrow?
Do you have
or today?
investors lined up for that already?
It's already full. And then I do have a fund that will be open likely through the end of the year. So that's for accredited investors only. Unfortunately, I am working on a crowdfunding offering where we would be able to take non-accredited investors, but I'm not there yet. So I'm talking to. The typical definition is that the investor has $1 million net worth minus the primary residence, or as a single individual, they make $200,000 a year, 2 consecutive years, or as a couple, $300,000 for 2 consecutive years as a couple, or they're a financial advisor with an active Series 65, 83, or 72, I think is what it is, license, or you have any businesses that would invest that have an excess of $5 million in net worth of assets. Including Indian tribes and some other stuff. So there's some new definitions that got released in March. So this is kind of a summary because on this one, I really don't love the way that the reports are. They're not graphic. They're not, there's no charts. There's no easy way to explain it. My biggest concern on this property has been that over time and again, there's no comparison month to month. So over time, what I have seen is that the occupancy went down during COVID, not a ton, but I think we were down in like the 83% range. And then now we're up to 97.92% occupied. So, so that's a positive sign on this property. And then this is actually, so this is just the financials that we get as an attachment to to this deal. I'm not the lead sponsor on this one, so I don't get to decide how the reporting goes. From now on, I'm the lead sponsor, unless it's Amy or Carolina. But anyway, so just looking at the rent roll, you're verifying that that number's right. And then this talks about move in, move out, pending move out reconciliations, new applications. The MMR that the operating team or the lead would again define where each source came from. This does not. Move-ins, let's see. Delinquency is my only other thing that I care about on this property because we are really working on reducing that. Okay, so I'll just show you mine for like a summary. Oh, I didn't get a summary on this one. So on this property, basically you log into, I forget the portal that they use, but you log into the portal and this is kind of what's in there. So this was the last report we got. So we know that physical occupancy is good. Economic occupancy, it just showed, was not as good, but it's not bad. It's like $2,000 in delinquent, so it's not that bad. It's a 50-unit property, so could be worse, but yeah, I've kind of asked to use a certain collections company, but not getting any feedback. And that's kind of what I know on this property right now. The last thing that I heard of to get more clarification on is we're supposed to be refinancing this property. And I don't have an answer yet on who the lender that was engaged or the signed term sheet on exactly who we're engaging for that refi or what the refi rate is or when the expected date of refinance is going to happen. For a while there, we had some issues with the lender, and so from my experience, even doing this property in Amarillo, the lender has very specific criteria on how their draw request process works. So it's really important in the very beginning to have whoever is in charge or watching or contributing to the draw process, that they're very clear on exactly how that happens, when it's submitted, and we have all the proper documentation so that the lender could never say, oh, we're not paying you, So what happened on this property was essentially the lender said, we're not paying for that, we're not paying for that, we're not paying for that. And I, again, still trying to work out details on why that happened or what that was for. But because of having to then engage the lender with our legal counsel and over time finally eke out those funds from the lender, it's taken a lot longer for us to replenish our capital account where it should have been during the draw process. And so I believe that we're right about there, but the refinance depends on that. So making sure that everything is stabilized. So our accounts are where they need to be. We don't have any outstanding draw requests, debts. The property is, stabilized, full. People are paying. So we're still kind of in the renovations process just because we're behind, I guess, in the draw process. So hopefully there will be an update next month on that one. And then, so that is the Meadows Village on University. This is our property in Denton, Texas. And what I'll do is I'll just kind of go through my most recent summary that I got. Let's see. So we changed the name. It was Village East Apartments. The property update, as you should know, we decided to hold off on selling this property until March because we found out we had a secret prepay penalty in our loan. So although we were excited about the offers that we got, because I actually headed up the marketing process of receiving offers, and we actually had a few at full price that we were going to sell at after holding the property for 2 years. We had to end up saying, okay, actually, just kidding. We're going to hold until March, and then we'll relist it again. But that gives us a few different benefits. Again, we need to really focus on this property and reducing our delinquency. We took a ton of community-based programs for people during COVID to be able to pay their rent. And so there's always a huge lag in getting those collections. And then even it's not housing, so they do pay, but just it's more complicated than having a renter who can just afford to be there. So that's part of the process of discussion that we've been having as far as what does our leasing vetting process look like, because that's the bottleneck. That's the issue. So we are now spending this time revamping that. And so I'll see if I can pull up a report, but delinquency went from $190,000 down to 28. So we've made a huge dent in the delinquency. And I believe it's due to, again, having renters that can actually afford to be there. So we're going to work on reducing our expense ratio further to increase revenue from the burn units, which will in turn increase our gross sales price. So that's, again, a good thing. I said let's not sell in wintertime anyway, so likely it'll be listed February, because that's when people kind of wake back up. Again, those potential buyers are still excited about purchasing Village East. One was from Los Angeles. I met him out there. So we're not concerned about finding a buyer, but it'll just be next year. So distributions, as we continue to improve expenses and focus on the sale of the property, distributions will not be sent this quarter. This allows us to capitalize on increased sales price and the ability to utilize the catch-up provision that we have in place. So we did do a few distributions, and then we decided to hold off because of all those delinquency issues that needed to be handled. We need to make sure that there was enough cash flow. And I guess good news is we have 2 extra years of interest only on the loan. So that's also, we're going to use this time frame to make sure that all of our property is stabilized before selling. Please know the catch-up provision will ensure all missed distributions are paid out when we exit the property. So this is their multifamily market update, Tyler, and so I'm kind of part of the operating team, but there are 2 asset managers. So it's Tyler Devereaux and Brian Aris. And then I'm kind of the local person that's like, let me, get it listed. Let me go spy on the property. Let me, anyway, because one of them lives in Hawaii and the other one lives in Arizona. So as with all outlying Dallas-Fort Worth submarkets, as the metro continues to extend outward, Denton is reaping the benefits, which is true. If y'all have been up there, it's been growing exponentially. Development has now picked up after COVID or after the lockdown. Vacancy rates are compressing. Rent growth is surging through the quarter 3 of 2021, thanks to heavy leasing activity, and sales volume continued to be impressive as investors remain bullish in the area, targeting mostly value-add opportunities with the submarket. Almost all of the key demographic indicators for renters, including household income, population growth, medium and home values, are near the metro average. So Denton's still a great place to have this asset. 2 things stand out. More than 40% of residents hold a bachelor's degree, which is a higher rate than the metro average. And the median age for the area is 28, 6 years lower than the metro average. Furthermore, job growth in Denton's industrial sector has been strong in recent years, which is who we market to, our workforce housing individuals, and many of those workers fall into this local renter pool. So all of the communication where I downloaded this from comes from our investor portal. Our communication tends to be quarterly on this property, and so I'm pushing for monthly. So now he said, yep, monthly property updates will be emailed every month. Good. Financials will be uploaded to your investor portal for your review as you please. These will be under documents. And then quarterly, we'll be doing a detailed property report emailed after every quarter. So 2 different types of reporting, because again, we're still in this process of fixing some challenges. And so I think that more communication, the better, and that's right. And this is off Village East Drive in Denton, if y'all ever are up there and you want to go check it out. So that is this summary report on Village on University. So we should be listing next year very early, and I'll be in charge of that again. I already have the broker lined up because he has a history with the property, and Mark knows it really well. And Mark, even during this marketing process, he's former military, and he's very good. Like, he keeps me on my toes, and I'm usually, we're usually the ones like, where's this? So that is where we're at with Village on University. And then if y'all want to go, you can. It's now 1:20, and that was the end of the time to be here, but I will go over really quickly an economic update on where I believe that we're going to be headed as far as interest rates going, inflation, and that is what is going to be applicable to multifamily specifically. And then I'll shut up. So let me go over that super quick. I'm even going to try to summarize. Congratulations. So pull it up really quick, and like I said, if y'all got to go, feel free. And this is really based on my 3 favorite economists that I follow, and this is just kind of recorded, so I'll just kind of go through it. So Dr. Mark Dotzer is my favorite economist. He's with the Texas A&M Real Estate Center. He has sort of like a overall, Dr. Mark Dotzer. So he's got like an overall Dotzer. D-O-T-Z-O-U-R. He's got an overall perspective where he'll look at 40-year windows, 30-year windows, and say, okay, well, here's the pattern that we've seen over time, and he'll use negative things and look at a positive light on pretty much everything. So anyway, we're going to continue to see low cap rates, lowering cap rates in Dallas-Fort Worth especially, which is crazy, but it's going to continue to happen. And low interest rates for now are going to continue until May of 2022. That's wrong. Till May of 2022. And the reason for that being is that the government is going to, or as of November 1st, has started to taper down their bond buying. So the bond buying process of the government tends to help us to have lower mortgage interest rates. And so now that that is going the opposite direction, over time until they completely stop buying bonds, which will be in June 2022, for that cycle, interest rates are going to be creeping up over that time. So inflation will happen, although we believe that it's temporary until the labor supply increases. But what causes inflation? So like I already mentioned, America decreases their bond purchases. And so this is a cycle that always happens as they announce that they will. So this will be tapering down, I think, as I already mentioned. So as interest rates go up, when this happens, interest rates go up and stock market performance goes down. This is for that temporary inflation. It's not longer term, but there has to be more powerful inflationary factors that are caused by two different routes. The first route we've seen before from 1970 to 1980, as oil prices increased and wages were up significantly because of labor unions in 1986, we saw incredible tax hikes. We don't believe that a lot of this will happen because boomers are retiring. Those who are 60 to 75 or so, that will open up jobs for those individuals that are in my generation that have multiple degrees, that are doing Uber Eats, that are doing Uber, Lyft, etc., and DoorDash to pay their loan service on their student loans. So there are going to be different job types that are going to be created. Now going back to historical inflation, what would cause historical inflation would be all these things happening at the same time, completely shutting off imports, completely shutting off offshoring, being closed to China, printing money like crazy, and then making people spend it. So those things would all have to be in alignment to see a larger amount of inflation. That's why I'm saying this is going to be a temporary amount of inflation. And I don't have Dr. Mark Dotzer's graphs. I'm sure y'all can get it from him. Just reference Greystone's conference here in Dallas. So here's the other thing is there's more liquidity in the market. So this is something that we've never seen before. And a lot of it has to do with people staying home and not spending. And so that right now, currently, we're not forcing people to spend that money. They can do it as they please. They can start a new business. They can invest into my multifamily deals. They can do whatever they want with that money. So that is causing, again, the compression in cap rates and continuous market activity. And again, because of COVID debt, because of COVID, the debt of Americans has actually gone down. It's decreased over this last year, and there's more liquidity in the market. Now, the other thing that could cause inflation, besides all those things I just mentioned aligning in the future, would be that the stock market falls, the dollar value falls, people do not own their dollars, gold and Bitcoin skyrocket in price, money leaves the United States to other countries in droves, the prices of everything that we buy also skyrockets. When you see these factors be in alignment, that would be the other time to be very cautious of investing in anything that does not benefit from inflation. So lucky for y'all, real estate actually benefits from inflationary factors because it is a hard asset which cash flows and is a business, and also other commercial real estate as well. So let's go back to the cycles of interest and debt. What we're going to see is in at least the loan market in commercial real estate. So as I mentioned before, due to tapering of bond buying and shutting off bond buying in June 2022, we predict that the long-term debt would be something I would confidently engage in until about May 2022. So meaning originating new loans, I'd be comfortable doing about until that time period because that will lock down a lower interest rate. And I don't believe, like I said, unless all these other things happen, that we're going to see skyrockets in interest rates. I think it's just going to go up, a reasonable amount, maybe a couple basis points. But I would confidently engage in new long-term debt until May 2022 to lock in low interest rates. Then moving forward, having a good interest rate as rates rise as a multifamily owner would actually be a possible loan assumption and a good way to offload your property because buyers wouldn't be able to qualify for those types of interest rates. And that can also help increase the valuation of the property based on the debt that's on the property. So you'd be able to sell your property no matter what, even under an assumption or assumable loan that would actually, like I said, help the new buyer be able to get better returns for their investors on the deal when they're buying your deal. So depending on your debt, I believe it will not be a problem. Continue to sell, which, like I mentioned, having an assumed or assumable loan will help balance out the rise of interest rates. Now, bridge debt, in a similar fashion, if we have rates that are increasing and we're not locked into a long-term debt structure, we want to make sure on our portfolio that if we have any of these bridge loans that we are out of them by May to June 2022, because after that point, I can't really predict exactly what's going to happen to interest rates. So as a company, we'll be heeding this and likely will not be engaging in any projects with bridge debt post-December 2021. So because some, like, for example, our Corpus deal is only like $300K worth of CapEx, making a laundry facility, just real light stuff. So you think our mortgages are pretty low right now, but when we have inflation, then our bond purchases will have to increase. So for example, we get to June 2022, our mortgage rates for a time period after that in a 6-year cycle, you'll see those mortgage rates increase to, I have no idea what, no clue. But to get those to come back down, then the government has to increase their bond buying again to get interest rates back down. So there's going to be that cycle that will come back with lowering of interest rates again in 2027. When we're looking at that time period of 2027, the reduction in mortgage interest rates in the United States, we believe will get to about 1.5% for the floor for interest rates. Whereas right now I'm seeing like high 2s, like 2.9, things like that, which is really good. So again, with this cycle, you'll just see it compressing more. And then you'll return to the same cycle again. So by 2033, then we've had the possibility to see a 0% interest rate, or even after that point in time, looking at negative interest rates, just like Europe is. So their money is flooding here because of that being where they are currently. So for me personally, what I suggest to myself would be to have more of a diversified investment portfolio by the time before 2033, to where we're like, okay, we're in technology, specifically artificial intelligence, be looking at post 2021 to be investing in especially medical artificial intelligence, and then also artificial intelligence that is very simple and solves something work related, a quick problem. So I would say diversify, don't only invest with me in that time frame, because I believe that I can't predict what's going to happen with interest rates, and we do mortgage and leverage our properties, so until I've got tons of cash and I can just buy them all cash, which is not yet the case for me or for our company. I would say by 2033 or around that time, be fully diversified. And then we're seeing that by following Dr. Mark Dotzer, that in 2034 and thereforward, after reaching negative interest rates, we're not sure the scheme or tactic the United States will use to reduce interest again, since the typical tactic of bond buying is not going to be applicable. So that is my prediction on what's going to happen with interest rates and mortgages. And obviously, that will affect our investment portfolio and investments in real estate in general. So with that, thank you for everyone who is online. I will conclude and stop sharing and end the meeting now. And you can always reach me at admin@theapartmentqueen.com if you have any questions or if you need any more clarification on anything that I covered.